Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together, share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave, and I'm excited about this episode. Here with me is my team, my squad, my party, my crew, my quorum. We've got David.
Topanga's husband turned out to be kind of a misogynistic dickhead.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't explain the shrimp, though.
We've got friend. Drew.
You said you were going to explain it in the intro. You didn't, and you also ruined one of my new favorite wrestlers. But now I can't unsee the Turtles kid. So thanks for that, David.
Well, it's Ricky Stark's fault, really.
He found shrimp tails in a box of cereal.
Exactly. And we've got Brett.
And as the third person to introduce himself, I'm going to talk about how the Dwayne Wayne sunglass flip down, we really should get in on that. Like, I had those when I was a kid. They were awesome. Mm-hmm. That's a thing that needs to come back.
I had them.
Yeah, just like the bass that we're going to talk about. We need to bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many strings does that thing got? It was like my earphones were going low.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping low.
Yes,
there's some stuff. Like this is. I was not expecting this from a YouTube link from Petey, and then I did some googling. Boy, I have some. You can chew on this for a little bit.
All right, so we're going to talk about an album. We're going to be talking about an album this week, and we're talking about an album that technically didn't come out. It's my pick for this week. Like I said last week, I was follow a few bands on Instagram, and one of those was Alex Navarro of Giant Bomb joined a band in New York called None Above All. They're in the same scene as another band called the 1865. Who actually has a really cool album called Don't Tread on We. If you want to put those two things together and know about that band, they're a cool band that we're probably going to bring up on the show in the future. But they had a post, I guess, of a book or of a listicle, of a list of called 50 Black Punks to Get to Know. And I think they were because they were part of it. And one of those names that was on that list, among the names you imagine, Fishbone and all the other bands that you would like would imagine. Bad Brains. Like that. Yeah. Was Cree Summer, and I was like, oh, I didn't read. I feel guilty that I didn't realize that she had a music career and that she was a punk, and in some respect, and at least considered it close enough or adjacent enough to be considered in that list. And I found out, I looked up some of the information. I found she had a band that didn't release an album, created, recorded, finished up, and was about to, but didn't get to release an album because of Capitol Records chickening out. And we're going to talk about that album that wasn't technically, but is out there as a collector's item. You're not gonna, like I said last week, you're not gonna find this one for $2 at the half price bookstore. No, you're gonna find this for like $80 or $100 because it's a collector's item. But I was just curious as to what the deal with this album is, so I just thought I'd bring it on. Let's talk about expectations. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I mean, I did not know that I was going to end up going to as many Wikipedia page rabbit holes, or seeing Instagram pictures of a beloved city of mine that I was not expecting to tie into some history from my head. I had no idea what this actually was going to be, and even after you explained it to us before that it was going to be punk, like I was sitting here being like, okay, he said something that's not Bad Brains. It's going to be punk. And it's like, okay, I come in expecting one thing, and I mean, I did get that. I did. But yes, there's so much. There's a lot that went on in this album, and it's wild that this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, with sort of the backing they gave us, I was expecting, and not to say this as something derogative, but something, I guess, a little simpler musically than this. I was expecting more the bass note riding the root of the guitar sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. No, not what I got. I was expecting a little more grunge, and it got a lot less grunge.
Yes, true.
Yeah. David, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Knowing what I know about Cree Summer, personality-wise, and her acting career, for me personally, she's something of a kindred spirit. Of course, not just including her voice acting career, but she has a little bit of that alt flair that some of us do. Also, remembering her role on A Different World, she definitely was a little bit of a standout. So when I picked up on the fact that she had a band and released an album, I was not entirely surprised by this. It was definitely lyrically pretty much on point with what I expected. Loud, feminist, and unapologetically black and woman.
Yes.
Unapologetically. And God bless her for it.
Yes.
Musically, I guess I was expecting a little bit more grunge, but not much.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. This album is kind of wild. So this album was made and released, or not released, was set to release in 1983. It is the like the whole of her creative effort back then. It is bringing in funk rock, grunge, rock and roll, like soul, like it has a bit of psychedelia in there. There's a lot of like great descriptors in there. Like if you look at it musically, there's so many like really cool elements. Like there's great guitar work. There's great dueling guitar work. There's it gets horny. You know, it gets horny throughout there. You got
Can we say that on Twitch?
It gets MIDI horny.
Yes, and like it gets. You get MIDI horns and you get actual saxophones depending on the song, and then like you get like really great wild keyboards in there, and there's just so many really fun things that happen musically. Like there's like moments that it gets like really like full on psychedelic. It fits in the 90s oddly enough in that it has quite a bit of 70s revival. And that brings in 70s psychedelic, 70s funk, and like things like that. I liked the descriptor in I like a lot of descriptors that you find on the YouTube channel of like like comparing it to some other bands like Prince of the Revolution, yeah, like and things like that, but also hearing her Frank Zappa influences, and it's like. I'm not as familiar with Frank Zappa, but I like the idea of like, she brought this plus that plus the other thing, and it's like, and it just mixes it all so well, and the personality of the album is so fantastic.
When you can blend genres and it works, it's really fucking cool.
Yeah, and the musicality is so fantastic, and the way it blends all those thoughts and ideas, and it's. The emotion of it is really fantastic, and getting in and building on the emotion. The big thing is like the vocals are just amazing. Like Cree Summer's voice is just angelic. Like, she's just fantastic, or demonic at times, but still beautiful. Like it is just she hits those like big emotive moments, and like she belts it out but it's not just vocal gymnastics. It's that she's emoting really well with her voice, and it is tingling. The way she does it, and it plays well with the instrument.
Petey felt a tingle. Petey felt a tingle.
Got the goosebumps, and it is and it just builds it in track after track, and there's so many really great moments that just like kind of just so musically creative and kind of like doesn't feel out of place, other than it feeling maybe like it's something that probably needed a few more like maybe a step or two more in production had it not been cut off, but that's about it. Like but it's very tight and very nice. It's very beautiful and experimental, and it has so many things going right for it. But yeah, Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, I'm going to be probably a little brief with this segment so I can dig in the others, because each song is kind of its own little thing, because there is quite a range. But there are some things that ring true all the ways. I should say squeal. Boy, they love their pinch harmonics. Boy, it's like it's squealies all day, every day. The guitar tone also really good, but that's from a guy who has a JCM 800 back here and grew up in the 90s. So the guitars kind of sound like 1993. I would say like they're like, when it comes to it showing its age, I know you said like 70s revival. I like at times like it reminded me of like, oh, they're doing the Black Crowes thing. They're doing the 90s indie folk and like alt folk kind of sound, where it's almost like the blend of college rock radio and hippies, grunge hippies. But it's so early in the 90s that things are sort of fluid. Where from this point you get your your alt world music. I don't know how there's some of that going on. There's some you can see how Dave Matthews Band came after bands kind of like this. They just added more hand percussion and hoot horns, but there's that going on.
Way
there's
more
the songs
saxophone.
Yeah, like two saxophones at the same time. There's like jam tracks. There is the psychedelic thing going on. We'll get into some of the things that they did that are calling back to others, but this is like what Petey said. It probably would have had another pass through the cleaners before it got pressed. But I kind of like that, because when it comes to the vocal harmonies, it sort of gave it more of like a realistic live performance type with feel with the harmonies, because they weren't dead on sterile. They had some flavor, and the timing was good. It wasn't bad. I'm not saying they were wrong. It's just it wasn't the unnaturally sterile sound of modern production, and I kind of like that. But yeah, the vocals are what you come here for, really. There's a lot of other things. There's a lot of cool stuff that we'll get into, but the vocals, the vocal range, and the way that those vocals fit in all of the different genres of music that it's sort of wedged into, beyond the content also for the age is a strange vintage. But yeah, the vocals are really the shining point here, because they go places, and it's shocking. It's shocking that they heard this and said, nah.
Yeah,
That's
silly
the thing, right?
Holy
shit.
Drew, how would you describe the sound musically?
Well, there are parts of it that very much feel like early 90s to me. As I was reading, I listened to it partway through before I started reading up, and there was lumped in language like grunge era, and yeah, I guess it's around that, and there are parts that feel sort of that Seattle area, but it's more in tonality and less in composition. The tone of the vocals especially, and the guitar to a certain degree, but to me the vocals, the production tone to it very much sounds that way. There was stuff to be said. Holy hell. That to me is the part that's sad on this. Is that there's obviously a pen that had words to put down, and this iteration of that just sort of didn't happen. I know she went on to like solo stuff, but I like the energy that's in this group. The bass work was incredible. Just incredible. There was something about it that like, look at the bass player, and there was two people who are credited on Wikipedia with bass work, but one of them is a name that like I don't know super well, but I recognize the name, which is not super common with bass. There's like, you get like jazz guys, and then like every once in a while, like, yeah, there's Flea, there's Geddy Lee, and there's like 5 jazz dudes. Yeah. Like there's Wooten and Miller, and like, but Anita James is a name that gets thrown around a lot, and there's reason for it. This woman can play. There was a groove that definitely like bordered between like the vocal tonality to me was very early 90s, and the drums and bass working together, I wasn't sure if it was early 90s or late 90s because of the things that they were doing. And I think that's sort of a credit to, like, this was 93, and I feel like this was ahead of its time. If it was like 5 to 7 years later, like, whatever idiot
would sound better. But,
yeah, but Capitol
other
also,
than that, yeah, you're right.
Capitol also wouldn't have dropped this album before it even had a chance.
How?
1993, progress is fucking weird.
This fit in perfectly at the time, and I just keep saying to myself, how did they drop this?
David, I don't want to be that guy, but I think you know 2 very important reasons of how.
I would imagine the people making the decisions.
Yeah.
They looked a lot more like me and Brett, and a lot like the 4 of us.
Let me rank up the.
Yeah, sounds
probably
about white.
Not too much like me.
Yeah. Can I be afraid of something?
Very much like you in the pants area, and less like you in the face area.
Yeah, like midsummer butt, like right here. That's the caucasity we're talking about. 1993 was Moral Panic Central. Like that was
Let's say late 90s. They were like, "Hey, we can make money off of these motherfuckers," and that's when you get like that. Yeah. But like, she had something to say.
They're playing Ludacris on the radio in the late 90s.
Yes,
exactly. And they were.
Yes, they were.
And they were putting this on the radio in 93. This is nuts.
Yes,
it's nuts.
A black lady with some shit to say don't fly in 93.
It doesn't in 2021.
It's fair.
Yeah, it's still, David, how would you describe this album musically?
Just fucking fantastic. Period. Go to the choice tracks.
Yes. Yes. It's not much. It's just so worth it to just jump into like the key tracks.
There's not even a need to try and spit out anymore. Let's just go into the tracks.
Let's go into the tracks.
Not bad.
We're talking about the key tracks. So let's we can pull up my notes.
Y'all right, Petey?
I'm lost. So the key tracks. It starts off really strong with "I, Me, Mind." It just hits it right out of the bar. Hits it right out of the park, like from the word go. And you get a nice taste of what's to come. Your life is just it's delightful. Like it just like it hits some of the things that it does musically. It's just fantastic. And you go into something like Beauty is Made, that is like goes into a bunch of different places and just explores. This is the one where they commented in the like descriptor of the YouTube video that we used to listen to the album. Because unfortunately, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not in the position to
buy
purchase
4
this album
copies of that and distribute it.
Yeah.
And to everyone who watches.
which we do with every episode of the Record Breakers podcast.
But they described this as if the revolution was fronted by Frank Zappa rather than Prince, like, which is a nice, wild descriptor. But it just the places it goes, like musically, it's just a fun exploration. Soul Sister just has a beautiful energy to it, like, and like it's just so fulfilling and kind of like it hits you in the soul. Even songs like Universal Pimp just like kind of takes it into like a whole other direction. And the artificial evolution is just beat poetry. So like it is just beat poetry set to a song, and that is just fantastic. And it has a message that is still relevant today. Like it's just the words in it are still relevant today. As far as like living as a black woman in this country or in so many other countries, it's wild to like think about progress. Staying much progress. Like
progress your ass to Canada, and it's still not nearly as good as it should. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the Instagram that I went to where I'm like, oh hey, look at that. Is that the CN Tower? Look at that.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Pizza and hit Timmy's and
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I should say I had no idea that was like I learned a lot about that lady that I did not know a lot about. I did not know about First Nations, like the whole background and like but yeah, I mean mine. So this is where like we get in the first few measures, we get a whammy going, and then we get a pinch harmonic, squealy. And I was like, man, this is coming in pretty hot. And then I hear that the octave effect on the guitar. I'm like, oh, this is like an Octavia. We got like Jimi Hendrix going on. Is this good? We're gonna get? See later. I will come back. Also, rock and roll saxophone. You got to call it when you see it. Rock and roll with saxophone. Worked for Huey Lewis. Someone like you, Deej. The synthesizer in the beginning took me to the Sega Saturn. Like seriously, it sounded like I was insulting that a little bit.
I loved the saxophone here.
Yes.
I loved it.
And the guitars, like, or even they sounded kind of like a 90s British pop song that like had that proggy sound with like, or kind of world music-y sounding. It's kind of has that like fusion jazz but dirty, which like Japanese video games had a ton of, especially Sega ones. Like it's that fusion jazz that's got that like that MIDI synth underneath. It's great. And there's that subtle sweep picking, but like there's some fun there. And at the end of the song, like just for some reason the synthesizer just going in and out of phase. It's just cool. We're getting the ooh-woos. Beauty is Made. There's a weird breakdown that kind of reminded me of my favorite bits of Dead Kennedys. But this time they had MIDI horn. All like it made modern sense. The only thing that really aged it, I thought, was referencing MTV. And artificial evolution. So I was like, man, that octave pedal, that's weird. Well, they've got some reverse delay to throw at you. It's some straight up like, I don't know if they're actually doing it the way that Jimmy did, where you take a delay tape and then you feed it in the machine backwards, so it gives you that reverse tape effect. There's this giant box called an Echoplay. It's a bunch of things, and I wonder if they actually did that, because this is like right in the like time range where the digital replacements to that wasn't as good, and they were recording this on tape. Obviously, it's that old, so they could have had like all of that stuff easily. But man, that is a trippy effect when that weird like reverse thing that comes right after a lick, that's super awesome, especially on a song like that. It is, like Petey said, beat poetry.
Yeah.
Also, that bass guitar, the whole way up and down. I want to say, hey, that bass guitar,
The whole
guitar.
album.
That bass guitar is like hanging out low, like super low, and it's great. Like worship band low. Like it's getting the funk like with extra strings on it.
There's some gospel moments in this. It's just this gospel singing. It just is so fantastic. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you? Oh,
you're muted, bud.
You're muted.
Just saying that bass is way too funky for 93. Like, just God. I mean, me mind. The groove just throughout this track. Like I say, Vertical Slice is the first song for this record. That's kind of hard because, like Brett said, you kind of go all over the place. But the groove in the first one and the vocal tonality just lets you sort of know where you're at. New Day. It's a new day. Yes, it is. New Day is. I knew I was going to get a groan out of somebody.
When I finally figured out, groan.
It's just that you go for the softballs, Drew.
I do. Look, I have to help watch Amber's 7-year-old. I've got to get dad jokes in when I can.
You're a dad joke scab. You dad joke scab. There are dads out there with their jokes, and we're out here both stealing them. Yes.
I want ska horns in this. There's a big part of me that wants all the ska horns in this. I want a whole horn section. I want Planet Smasher style horns throughout all of this. It's a phenomenal song. Just goes all over the place. And then Only Color. Holy shit, the girl from a different world had shit to say on this one. This to me is one of those, like, it's a snarl track, and the righteous anger that comes through on this one, I think that's the best term I can use for that. Is righteous anger.
So Drew, television sitcom, your age is a little different. I'm almost too young to like have this be a cultural touchstone, and they didn't rerun it a lot. So
well, I mean,
I was gonna say this might be more of a question for David than me,
but I mean, I remember it being a thing. I remember the show. I think I was a little young to actively be watching it when it was airing it. But then I think it was. But then again, I watched Living Single when it was airing, so I don't know. I think it was just
television used to be weird.
I watched
5
channels.
A lot
of Living Single. I watched a lot of Living Single.
Okay, Deej. Spill the beans.
Yes.
The sitcom.
Like our age is very similar. Like your television watching. So like give the folks at home some context.
So
we're not that old. We're not Gen Xers.
A Different World was a sitcom that was actually a spin-off from The Cosby Show, where one of the Cosby daughters went to Hillman College, a fictional HBCU in Virginia. And it was essentially a sitcom life in the 90s at a black college. And Cree Summer was one of the characters on the show. And yeah, she was a part of that whole cast where we saw Jasmine Guy, Kadeem Hardison, Sinbad, and also it had a theme song that was done by Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
I forgot about Sinbad. Wow. Yeah. It's been since it was on TV, it's been a long time.
I loved him in Kazam. But David,
all the way.
No.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
No, Petey.
That's funny.
Foul on
funny.
P-Rave.
Man, Sinbad doesn't deserve it.
Replay the podcast. Do that again.
Don't diss Shaq like that.
No, and also, I feel so sorry for
Shaq was in
Sinbad.
a different movie. Shaq was in a different movie. It was just that was
the best.
Get that
says
Mandela effect shit out of here.
Bears.
Guy in like
Bears.
87 in prison or something.
David.
I hate you all. I hate you all.
David,
It's when they turned the Large Hadron Collider
But
on.
I do want a pair of those glasses.
Yes.
At some
I mean, you need those sweaters too. Like he's taking the sweaters, the sweater torch.
Oh yeah. There's
the fashion that was in that shit.
Some of the hip drips that are going
we're
out.
talking about Sinbad. Like, come on,
the
like,
hipster drips that are happening right now are not too dissimilar to the looks go.
Yeah, like streetwear became
and
like.
you know what? And I'm not. I'm here
so
for it.
much.
And I'm here for it.
So
really,
much.
I'm here for it. But yeah, David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The third track, "Someone Like You." That sax solo took me back to the only time Saturday Night Live was good, and G.E. Smith and the Saturday Night Live band. And that was perfect. Track 5, "Beauty Is Made." There is so much groove on this song. On top of the guitar, I wrote this in my notes. It's like Candlebox, but better, to be timely with the 90s. The breakdown in this song is 25 years ahead of its time. It is a mix of Danny Brown, the SpongeBob freeform jazz meme, and just a great amount of seasoning of Black Girl Magic. Loved it. Wow. Track 9, "Pimp Womb." Cree is singing her heart out, and the organ intro is just magical. And track 13, "Only Color." Enough said. Just listen to that one.
Yes. Yeah, and like so many moments in this album that just like shoot it out of the park. But let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I mean, if nothing else, like, get a bootleg YouTube version of this album, give it a listen. That way you know that it exists, so you can, like, when somebody else brings it up in the future, you can be like, aha, I am also, like, enlightened. Because this is one of those, like, hey, did you know? And I'm going to tell people, hey, did you know? To anybody who's my age and older. And also I'm going to be talking about the best of Sinbad shirts. That man was never dressed uncomfortably. Like, Sinbad, so comfortable all the time. He's like in his silks and his, like, it's like everything like lays over him. Like, man. And I bet he could shoot free throws better than Shaq. No, this album's great. It took me back to a weird time in music. Like that weird early 90s when people were trying to figure out, like, hey, you know, we can do whatever the hell we want. We don't need these genres.
Yes.
And we're like,
don't.
Okay.
And you can look however you want.
Who's got a
and
MIDI
play
controller?
whatever genre you like.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's put some like weird, like super, like almost like that Larry Carlton like fusion jazz tone in a song that also has a straight up Sega Saturn sounds. Like that is some Brett ass shit right there, and that's good. I'm into this. Like it's the more I listen, the more I find, which is crazy because like somebody said nuh-uh to this.
Yes.
Like this seems easy. Yeah. This is like this could be released today and hit.
Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I would like to second the motion from Brett. Holy shit. Cree Summer, somebody like you know, like you don't know, you know, but you know, from something. Her body of work as a voice actress and an actress is sort of very well known. This should be way more known than it is. Like I alluded to, some very scared old people may have stopped this from being known, but like you don't have to because you can bootleg it on the internet.
You can easily go out and find rap albums by professional wrestlers of the same era. Can't find this.
But don't.
Yeah,
You can't
You
find
don't
this.
need to.
There it is, everybody. We got one of our things in on the Record Breakers podcast.
Yeah.
We know you were waiting for it.
If you're looking for a rap record by a wrestler, you need to look to the Doctor
Don't.
of Thugonomics.
Don't.
Not
If you're looking for a rap record by a professional wrestler, don't.
don't.
Exactly.
Well,
That's
or
what-
that's
call
available,
up
and this is not.
Platinum Max Caster. He'll get you hooked up.
But no, this is every bit of this was great. It's astounding to me, but also predictable that like it was like, yeah, we're gonna do this. Oh wait, oh no, and like just backed out.
David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
This was delightful. This was really, really good. It's very early 90s, but like in the best way. It's the best of that sound with other things around. I'm amazed, agog, if you will, that this wasn't in regular rotation on 120 minutes. It should have been. How did this not make it big? Just how? Even if old white record executives were afraid, they should have at least seen the money to be made. Bars. I dug this, man. I really did. I pretty much have dug everything Cree Summer has done her entire career. This is no different. The prolificness of her acting and voice talent, it shines here. Of course, she would have the ability to sing and put out a great record. Of course she did. She's done work in music before, and seeing her just as herself this way, it was a joy. I asked on Twitter, and she actually responded, how did this not make it big? And Cree Summer herself said, with finesse. And yeah, they got finessed.
Yeah.
And this really should have been big. It really should have. Capitol Records, you fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, they fucked up in many ways. Record labels, these big record executives, they're all fuck ups. This album is really well made, really incredible, really diverse, really beautiful, really strong, really unapologetically black, unapologetically feminine, unapologetically strong, and it's all the better for it. It is something that it's a tone, it's a style, it's a type of album that was needed back then and is still needed now. It is creative, so it's not just a message album, but it's also just creative and fun and a great outlet for Cree and the people she collaborates with. Anita Jones doing fantastic work there. Greg Bell is fantastic in all he does. It is such a great outlet for just bringing out ideas. This should have come out. I mean, they were able to play shows. They had some popularity and be able to like open for groups and tour and things like that. But the fact that they chickened out on this is some chicken shit.
It's some fucked up, repugnant shit. Is what it is.
And it's a shame. I wish that they would just even at this point they should I don't know, maybe in a couple of years they should release it as a special hey, this album, it's the anniversary of what could have been or something like that.
Imagine two things that I just thought of. One, imagine this band going on tour with Rage Against the Machine. That was the first thing that popped into my head, which would be amazing.
That's a room of a bunch of different types of people.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. And two, I think like when you're speaking on stuff and like you're trying to get the big guys like I don't know, Capitol Records or A&R type level of notoriety, you have to get to the door, you have to be so good that it's beyond reproach. And like the composition work, the musicianship in this is beyond reproach. It's just there's some chicken shit motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You blew it, Capitol Records. You fucking blew it.
Yeah.
I got news for them.
Yeah. But yeah, this is an amazing.
Napster.
This one could have been an amazing album. It was an amazing album. It just needed to be put on shelves. Like that's all I had to do. Press it, put it on shelves, and it would have sold. Like it would have been amazing. It would have been on movie soundtracks.
120 minutes.
120 minutes. It would have been on movie soundtracks after movie soundtrack. It would have been such a huge hit, and I think it's worth going back to and checking out and listening to because
could have had an awesome music video featured on Beavis and Butthead. Like
exactly.
There's all kinds of things that were lost.
Cree Summer on TRL, not just with her band, but doing like all 8,000 of her voices for characters that she's done.
And it would
comes in
so
as
much
the
less
neighbor
time
from
for me
the
to put those voices to the same person.
Yes,
because that just happened this week.
You have incurred the wrath of the code name of the kids next door.
I mean, that's one degree of Kevin Bacon from Guar. So
exactly. But yeah, it was an amazing album. Go check it out. Yeah, those are our thoughts on Subject to Change's Womb Amnesia. Now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, where we sum it all up in poetic form, our haiku reviews.
Our top 10 Sinbad shirts of the week.
The haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumero numero uno. Brett, what is your haiku?
There's a lot here from a time, but it's different. An album to know. And I am glad I know it.
Yes.
Take that, pub trivia.
Yes. Drew, what is your haiku?
Say pub trivia and good job, Brain. The podcast is coming back, and I'm really excited. That's neither here nor there. An intense record with some powerful lyrics. For me, it's bass.
How low can you go?
Can you go down low?
Drew likes to drop it low, everybody.
Go down to the flow.
Incredible. Rhyme Animal. The Incredible.
Public Enemy #1.
DJM said freeze, and I got none. David, what is your haiku?
90s alt funk rock. I love this, but you might not. Pineapple pizza.
Of course, my haiku. Genre bending great. A showcase for Cree's talent. Oh, what could have been. Those are our thoughts on Subject to Change's Womb Amnesia. You can, of course, find it on YouTube. Unfortunately, you can't find it on their Spotify playlist. But presumably what will be on our Spotify playlist will be next week's record. And you can still do your due diligence with that. The provider of next week's album is going to be David. David, what have you got for us next week?
I am going to drag each and every single person involved in this podcast kicking and screaming out of the 90s. My pick...
Going backwards or forwards?
My pick will be the 2019 album from London-based rapper, the self-titled debut of one AJ Tracy.
Nice. So look forward to that next week. But that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbityBibbard, HIBBITYBBARD. Drew is at XTruciferX. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube and on Twitch. You can, of course, please follow us on Twitch as we stream live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and sometimes Mondays. We do Dungeons and Dragons on Tuesdays, Record Breakers on Wednesdays, and we do Space Trucking on Thursdays.
Okay.
We do Starbound nowadays. I've been playing Control on Fridays, and sometimes I'll do a random stream on Mondays, like either Moonlight or No Man's Sky or something like that.
You just wait until Petey's out of control.
Yes. But yeah, keep track of that. Check out the schedule below. Check out all the things. Like, share, subscribe, wherever you find podcasts. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
It's a different world from where you come from.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.